Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. And today we are going to talk about the division in Flock. Yes, why is it that in this country, some police departments are completely abolishing Flock and others are just like, hey, gung-ho, let's hide them all from everybody and then change the law so you're not even allowed to find out where they are. That's wonderful. But we'll see what's going on in the midst of that. And it is starting over in Kentucky. Anybody out there in Kentucky? I know Level 1 News is in Kentucky. I don't know if I don't think they've reported on this yet, although my news are usually really right about theirs. I think they record their news on Friday about the same time I'm doing mine. So I would expect to see this in theirs. It better be. But the Kentucky police conceal flock camera locations under the Open Records Law Amendment. So this is basically like your FOIA records. You go and be like, hey, we need the location of all of these records. And the police really don't want to tell people because they're like, well, if we tell people where they are, then the criminals could evade our cameras. It's like, yeah, and the non-criminals could evade your cameras too. You see, and this is what's backwards in our country. Our country is not an authoritarian police state where the police get to sit there and monitor everybody and pluck the criminals out. Our police, for better or for worse, is designed to be reactive. All right. It's designed that we should be able to take care of ourselves. It's designed that we should be able to protect ourselves. And for the crimes that do happen, the police are to investigate and prosecute the people after the fact. And that is the thing, and that's the biggest problem with the Flock surveillance network is these networks, they are creating massive databases of non-criminals, and that is a major constitutional violation. And so, you know, and to say the police department only has a certain number of days of these, yeah, but how about the company? Because it's very, very, very clear that this data can be taken outside of these individual police departments and used company-wide. The police department only has 90 days of data. What about the company? Can we audit the company and see, do they actually hold records longer than that? And that's a good question. So people in Kentucky have been wanting to know where these are. And Kentucky actually changed its law, probably signed by like Mitch McConnell. I know he's been very active and busy in his role of there as a senator from Kentucky. So I bet he was all over this law. I bet so, you know. So police departments across the state are denying open records requests for the locations of flock cameras using an amendment passed last March by the Kentucky General Assembly. So hundreds of undisclosed cameras in Kentucky have raised concerns about the privacy implications of widespread surveillance. And the Open Records Act can now withhold the disclosure if, quote, it could pose an articulable risk of harm to the agency or its investigation. And so they're using this in Kentucky and saying, well, there's ongoing investigations and you would put all investigations in jeopardy if we told you where these cameras are. And so the state is in perpetual state of investigation because Kentucky has become a police state. You guys need to vote everybody out, especially Mitch, and vote everyone out, vote in a bunch of people who can return the state back to the people. Kentucky has been taken over by the police state. Hitler is in charge over there, folks. You better get him out. They say under the amendment, the could standard, there is a could standard. They could withhold the information, but there's no requirement. So each denial said if locations were made public, people could use that information to actively avoid detection from the police. Yeah, that's the point. I do not want to live in a police state, and it's not the police's business where I'm going. If they think I'm committing a crime, well, go through the courts, get a GPS tracker, and lawfully with a warrant, put it on my vehicle. Okay, and hope I don't find it. So this is a fundamental principle. This is a massive violation of the Constitution. Not only are they building a giant surveillance network, they're hiding the means that lawful citizens have to avoid such cameras, and then they are failing to tell anybody where these are because the entire state is under a perpetual state of investigation. So we need some Big Bird costumes going on over there in Kentucky, folks. What are y'all doing? The total number of cameras in Kentucky is unknown. Some are privately owned, and some are police departments are resisting to release their locations. Now, some of them, like in Louisville, they actually do disclose where their locations are, their camera locations. So this is Louisville. I'd stay out of there. And I've driven on this street not too long ago. I bet I got all flocked up in Louisville. It depends on where these cameras are pointed there. This one, I don't know. It depends if these are on the interstate or not. I drove through the interstate. I didn't actually go into the city itself. So according to the appeal decisions published by the Office of the Office of the Secret Service Department, Elizabethtown and Bowling Green police departments denied requests to release their flock locations in November, also using the investigation example. Oh dear, I actually spent some time out there in Bowling Green. Was that November? I know I did November of the year before. Yeah, I did November of 2024, I think. I think I was out there last November, at least for a day. I was out there recently, at least for a day. I can't remember how long ago, but yeah, Bowling Green. Elizabethtown, I've been up in there as well. So Richmond, Paris, Frankfurt, Elizabethtown, Bowling Green police departments all said flock cameras used for ongoing and prospective police investigations. So publishing the flock camera locations will let wanted persons, or just anyone who we want to surveil, to bypass the system, impeding the effectiveness. Yeah, there you go. So because the cameras collect information tied to specific investigations, those records should eventually become public once the investigation ends. But since there's perpetual investigations, guess what? That never happens. Even the cat is mad about this. Can you guys hear the cat? She's like howling in the background. I think she's lost again. So media attorney Michael Abate disagrees with the state of perpetual investigation. So he said even the law enforcement exception says when investigation is over, you have to turn everything over. Now they're saying we're living under a permanent state of suspicion and investigation. So they are refusing to disclose any of that information, even though it's required to enter it into the public record. So what are they, Kentucky police, just going to, seal the location of all these in the courts? I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure Goebbels is over here writing all of the individual news propaganda. Under the lower threshold, police departments are successfully arguing that publicizing the flock camera locations could allow a hypothetical criminal to avoid detection, a risk that never expires. How wonderful. So over there in Kentucky, there's a little bit more here. So this was House Bill 58, which passed, probably signed by Mitch McConnell. I know he's fruitful in office. He's just sharp as a tack. I had a 20-minute phone call with him the other day, in fact. And so HB 58 established strict legal boundaries for how the license plate readers and their data, such as vehicle, make, model, time of capture, must be regulated. The bill forces law enforcement agencies to destroy unneeded license plate data after a maximum of 90 days. And that is fine. Except all of these things go back and feed the central network. Is Flock required to delete them after 90 days? Can Flock show them outside of the Kentucky Police Department? Is Flock regulated the same way that the police departments are under these laws? I don't think so. So Representative T.J. Adolph Roberts said that that would have required a list of locations, license plate readers to be updated every 150 days and subject to disclosure, but it did not pass. I'm sorry. My apologies to T.J. Roberts. He's the one that was trying to stop it, so he is not Adolph. My apologies, Mr. Roberts. I will call you Bonhoeffer Roberts. How's that? Trying to raise awareness of the concern. So, beyond violent crime, Greathouse said the technology has helped two detectives tremendously increase their clearance rates for the 400 to 500 hit and run cases they handle monthly. That's a good point. Okay, well, what if we could use this data? I have a fun solution for you folks. It is called a dash cam, and it is a dash cam that is not tied to a cloud provider. I have a dash cam in my car and in the van. Wherever I go, I'm running a dash cam. All right. Now, I could improve my odds by putting, higher quality dash cams. Mine is 1080p. I could get a 4K. I could add side ones and rear cameras if I wanted to. But I got the one in the front. And if I happen to have some issue and somebody hits and runs and gets away, very good chances my 1080p dash cam has just captured their license plate. And rather than feeding all this information into a centralized searchable database in the fingertips of persons unknowns, it's way better if we have the information at our fingertips that we can use at our disposal and pass it on to law enforcement as needed. That's the same reason I decided to keep the Night Owl camera system. And you guys are going to love that Night Owl camera video. That is such a horrible system to put on the internet. Do not put that thing. It's like, your browser's too new, bro. You need to downgrade your browser to a 9-year-old web browser. Would you like to translate this thing into English for you from Chinese? Yeah, there's problems on that camera system. But I ultimately decided to keep it because it was cheap. It's wired. I can run it entirely offline, and it collects all the data, a couple months of data on a local DVR. And if there's something goes on and some police officer kindly knocks on my door and says, hey, we think something might have happened outside your front here. We see you have cameras. Can we see some footage? I would have no problem with sharing that footage in that circumstance. And that's the thing we need to be. So ultimately, y'all need to vote the Hitler Youth Party out of Kentucky and take back control of the state, folks. Y'all are lost out there in Kentucky. All right, but it's not all doom and gloom. We actually have several other cases in Chandler, Arizona. They dropped the Flock license plate readers after audit flags showed potential misuse. So they didn't look at this and go, yeah, we'll just keep using this and punish the officers. No, they're like, no, we're done with it. Now, the sad thing is many of these police, because Flock is itself such a negative name, many of these police departments are dropping Flock and they're going to Axiom, which is just as bad. But, you know, and I'm okay if the police have body cams got tied into the Axiom systems. I'm more okay with that. It's these unavoidable cameras put at every major road that I have the issue with. So the city of Chandler is discontinuing the use of Flock automated license plate reader cameras after routine audit flagged potential misuse of the system by a department employee. So the city will not renew its agreement with Flock and has immediately restricted all police personnel from accessing the system. Of course, those cameras are still there, so Flock can still access them. Yeah. Part of the investigation will be to determine if Flock was used inappropriate, and if so, discipline will follow. They said 200 police personnel had access to the system. So Chapman said that Chapman, the city, supports the system, citing more than 2,000 cases which the camera aided investigations, including recovering stolen vehicles and locating missing dementia patients. Just up your teenage kids riding around on bikes. If you didn't see that story, that was in Tucson, I think. A teenager sees this woman meandering around and stops and talks to her and determines that she's kind of lost. And so he walks with her until he gets to a place where they can get a phone and call somebody. It was a really good, heartwarming story down there in Arizona. So he says the city needed to address community concerns and strengthen safeguards before moving forward. So I see, if these systems had local storage cameras that a crime was detected in this area, send a technician out to retrieve the data, that would be a fine solution. Closed CCTV, especially something that overwrites the data every, say, 15, 20 days or so. It's not connected to any internet systems, not connected to a central database. I have less problems with that. The company built the auditing tools. So Flock said that it's disappointed with the decision, but they said the auditing tools are what showed these up, and the number of abuses in the system is increasing because of their new auditing tools, as Flock said. So Chandler, though, joins a growing list of Arizona jurisdictions that have dropped Flock contracts in recent months, including Pinal County, Flagstaff, Sedona, and South Tucson. So Savannah, Georgia is taking a little bit different approach. So Savannah, they're using the audit things. They're just terminating the employees that use them. So they actually had 4 police officers and 2 civilian employees. And one of these actually gave access to the flock system to a non-departmental person. So yeah, sharing simple passwords, are we? I'm sorry. This is the Flock network, not Netflix. There's no password sharing here, folks. All right. So Savannah Police Department terminated 4 sworn officers and 2 civilian employees following an internal investigation into the misuse of the Flock system. All 6 cases under independent criminal investigation by GBI. And so the investigators found that employees were running searches on personal acquaintances and family members. One officer was found to have given somebody from outside law enforcement access to the Flock safety system, which they were not authorized to do. And SPD said they would have other safeguards in place, including mandatory training, role-based access controls, and supervisory oversight. So that's pretty good. So I did want to end on this one here. So this group has been working with finding adversarial patterns that can prevent surveillance cameras from detecting you. That's kind of cool. And they all seem to be very geometric-y type patterns, things that are bold. So 31 million tests, and Swearingen says, I think that's his name, says he can now produce patterns on demand that when applied to clothing and objects prevent some of the most commonly deployed license plate readers and surveillance cameras from detecting whatever the pattern covers, from people to vehicles. So the detection algorithms that power most surveillance cameras can sift through vast amounts of footage, allowing law enforcement to pick out activity of interest akin to pulling a needle out of a haystack. Swearingen's computer-generated patterns do not block the cameras from recording. Instead, they scramble the camera's ability to identify objects, people, or faces, so the cameras do not trigger any detection alerts. So he's described how his town is swamped with surveillance cameras, sometimes located within a few feet from each other. And he said he and others never opted into being watched, just like he never opted into having the government use his driver's license for facial recognition, which is a problem Pennsylvania has. Yes, our driver's licenses in Pennsylvania go into a facial recognition database. So if you see me shave suddenly, it might just be that my license is up for renewal. I'm sure they can still detect me bearded or not, but anyway. He refined patterns by scaling his tests with additional computer processing. He thanked the wider community who showed up with hardware to further help the project. He's basically working on selling clothes and patterns that you can use to cover vehicles and your person to prevent detection. But he is keeping a lot of these things offline because he does not want the patterns to go online for the cameras to work with them, the camera manufacturers to work with them and figure out how to override those. Here's an example. He said the pattern on this car will scramble the Flock cameras and they can't see his license plate. Pretty sweet. So there is some good news in the world of Flock, and that is kind of what is going on. So let me know your thoughts about all of these comments, all these articles here in the comments down below.